Hello, students. How are you all doing? I hope all of you are doing really well. So, in today's class, we are going to study Iswaran the storyteller, and this is the part 2. So, in part 1, we have discussed that how a huge beast entered the school playground, and Iswaran was able to bring down the huge beast using his guts, and he was daring enough to do that. In today's class, we will see how he did that, and we will continue reading the chapter. So let's begin. Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention, would be left hanging. So I told you that he did not finish the story. He just got up and he said that I will be back in some time. I will just warm up the dinner and will be back. So he did not finish the story. And Mahendra, who had been listening with rapt attention means he was completely fascinated with the story. He would be left hanging. He was like, okay, just tell me what happened after it. Complete the story and then go. So he was left hanging. When he returned, Iswaran would not pick up the thread of the story right away. So when Iswaran used to return from his work, he will never pick up the story from where he left. Okay, pick up the thread means would not restart the story from where he left. And why do you think he did so? Maybe to just make the listeners more grow curious, okay, more interested. They should come and ask me, oh, please tell me what happened after it. So he waited for the listener to ask him to complete the story. He was trying to create suspense and surprise by not completing the story. Mahendra would have to remind him that the conclusion was pending. Well, our veterinary doctor was summoned to revive the animal. So when he was asked to complete the story, he said, nothing much, just a veterinary doctor means a doctor of the animals. So a veterinary doctor was called, and the animal was to be revived. Iswaran would shrug. Shrug means just raised one's shoulder slightly to express doubt or ignorance. So it's basically when you do like this, isn't it? You just raise your shoulder. So Iswaran would shrug casually. 2 days later, it was led away by its mahout to the jungle. So after 2 days, the beast was taken away to the jungle by the mahout. Well, how did you manage to do it, Iswaran? How did you bring down the beast? So Mahendra is also in question that how were you able to do it? You were such a small kid and the beast was really huge. So how did you bring down the beast? It has something to do with a Japanese art, I think, sir. Karate or jujitsu, it is called. So he's now saying that it is a kind of art. It's a Japanese art. Karate or jujitsu. I had read about it somewhere. It temporarily paralyzes the nervous system. You see? So Ishwan is trying to show off his knowledge, and he is saying that, oh, I have read about it. If you whack someone's third toenail, it temporarily paralyzes their nervous system. And that is the same technique I applied to bring down the beast. Not a day passed without Iswaran recounting some story packed with adventure, horror, and suspense. Whether the story was credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it because of the inimitable way in which it was told. Iswaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. So now not a single day passed without Iswaran telling some stories packed with adventure or horror or suspense. So he had a variety of stories to tell. It was of adventure, of horror, of suspense, and whatnot. Whether the story was credible or not, credible means believable. So sometimes the story was quite, unbelievable. Oh, it might not be true. How are you saying this? So even if it was not credible, Mahendra enjoyed listening to it, simply because the unique way in which he was telling the stories. Inimitable means in a very unique way. So Ishwaran had this with him. He has a very unique way of telling stories. Nobody can copy him, and that made the story really interesting. And Mahendra enjoyed it. And because of this, uniqueness in Ishwaran, uniqueness of telling stories, he seemed to have make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters. So if you don't have TV, you don't get entertained. It's kind of like that. So Ishwaran was so interesting. He was so entertaining. He used to bring up really good stories. So he never missed the absence of TV in his living quarters. One morning, when Mahendra was having breakfast, Ishwaran asked, "Can I make something special for dinner tonight, sir?" So when Mahendra was having breakfast, Ishwaran asked him that, "Can I make something special for tonight?" After all, today is an auspicious day. According to tradition, we prepare various delicacies to feed the spirits of our ancestors today, sir. So now he is giving a reason that why he wants to make a very good food. Because according to the tradition, they prepare various delicacies, means various kind of good food to feed whom? To feed the spirits of their ancestors. Okay. That night, Mahendra enjoyed the most delicious dinner and complimented Ishwaran on his culinary skills. So Mahendra was, he enjoyed a very good dinner, very delicious dinner. And even he complimented Ishwaran that your cooking skills are very good. Culinary skills means the cooking skills. He said that you are a very good cook. He seemed very pleased, but unexpectedly launched into a most garish account involving the supernatural. So Ishwaran was really pleased, but he launched into a very garish account involving the supernatural. So Ishwaran started to tell stories of, ghost. Supernatural means a very horror story. Garish means something too bright and fancy that it is disliked. So the stories were so deeply told, every detail was given. It was too fancy that Mahendra started to dislike it. Mahendra was not enjoying the horror story told by Ishwaran. Sir, this entire factory area we are occupying was once a burial ground, he started. So burial ground is the ground where people bury the dead bodies. So Ishwaran is now telling that, do you know, sir, the entire factory area where which we are occupying was once a burial ground. Mahendra was jerked out of the pleasant reverie he had drifted into after the satisfying meal. So Mahendra was in shock. He just jerked out of the pleasant reverie. Reverie means a state of being pleasantly lost in one's thoughts or a daydream. So just now he had enjoyed a very good, very satisfying meal, and he was enjoying that state, the state of pleasant state. But as soon as he said that it was a burial ground, he was jerked out. I knew on the first day itself when I saw a human skull lying on the path. Even now I come across a number of skulls and bones. So he's just making it very detailed, and it's very awkward that he's saying, oh, I see human skulls lying here and there on the ground. I knew it, that it's a burial ground. I found so many bones and skulls. So Ishwaran was landing into a garish account. So you can see in this picture that how Ishwaran was crossing the path and he saw a skull head of a human body. Ishwaran continued. He went on to narrate how he sometimes saw ghosts at night. I am not easily frightened by these things, sir. I am a brave fellow. But one horrible ghost of a woman which appears off and on at midnight during the full moon. So Ishwaran is very casually saying that I have seen ghosts in this area. I just keep seeing ghosts. But there is one very horrible ghost of a woman which keeps on coming now and then on the full moon, on the day of a full moon. It is an ugly creature with matted hair and a shriveled face, like a skeleton holding a fetus in its arms. So Ishwaran is also describing how the ghost looks. So he's saying that it's a very ugly creature. It looks very bad. Okay, face is shriveled. Shriveled means wrinkled, and he is also saying that the woman holds a fetus. Fetus is an unborn baby in its arms. So the ghost is holding a fetus in its arms. So this is very, it's very scary. And Ishwaran was very casually saying these stories. Mahendra shivered at the description and interrupted rather sharply. You are crazy, Ishwaran. There are no such things as ghosts or spirits. So Mahendra he got scared, but he also interrupted very sharply, like in a tone where like he wanted to scold him. Are you mad, Ishwaran? What are you talking about? There are no such things as ghosts or spirits. I don't believe in these things. Stop telling me stories of ghosts. It is all a figment of your imagination. Get your digestive system examined, and maybe your head as well. You're talking nonsense. So Mahendra got really, angry at Ishwaran, that why are you telling me such stories? It is all a figment of imagination. Go get your digestive system checked. Why is saying him to get his digestive system examined? Because it is being told that when you are having your stomach is not well, you think of things like ghosts and spirits, and that is why he asked him to go and see a doctor. You are just talking nonsense. You have gone crazy. He left the room and retired for the night, expecting Ishwaran to sulk for a couple of days. So he left the room and he went to sleep. And he was also expecting Ishwaran to sulk for a couple of days. Sulk means to be silent out of annoyance. So he thought that I have scolded Ishwaran. Maybe he will be silent and he will, he'll be angry at me. He will not talk to me for some time. But the next morning he was surprised to find the cook as cheerful and as talkative as ever. So he was expecting him to be sulking, but no, that did not happen. He was very cheerful, he was very talkative. Ishwaran did not mind at all. So Mahendra was surprised to see this. From that day on, Mahendra, for all his brave talk, went to bed with a certain unease. So from that day when he told the story of a woman carrying a fetus in its arm, Mahendra was not getting a comfortable sleep. He used to feel very uneasy. He was feeling some kind of discomfort. He was scared to that extent that he was feeling discomfort. Okay. Every night he peered into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed, trying to make sure there was no movement of dark shapes in the vicinity. So every night he had a feeling that I should look outside the window. Okay. So he peered. Peered means he peeped into the darkness outside through the window next to his bed. And he tried to make sure that there was no such things, no movement of dark shapes, no ghost, no woman whatsoever. Okay, vicinity means the nearby area. But he could only see a sea of darkness with the twinkling lights of the factory miles away. So when he peeped out of the window, he could see a sea of darkness, okay, with some lights of the factories which were miles away. He had always liked to admire the milk-white landscape on full moon nights. So he had a very, he admired the natural landscape, the milk-white landscape on full moon nights. It's very beautiful to see. But after hearing Ishwaran's story of the female ghost, he avoided looking out of his window altogether when the moon was full. So, like I told you, he really enjoyed looking out the window when it was full moon. But after the incident, when Iswaran has told him the story of female ghost, He was scared. He was scared and he did not look out of his window when the moon was full. One night, Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan close to his window. At first, he put it down to a cat prowling around for mice. So one night what happened? Mahendra was woken up from his sleep by a low moan. Moan is a kind of crying sound, okay, which was coming from his window. At first, he thought that it might be a cat which is looking around for a mice, for a rat. So the cat might be moaning. But the sound was too guttural for a cat. He resisted the curiosity to look out, lest he should behold a sight which would stop his heart. But he thought that it might be a cat. But then the sound was too guttural for a cat. Guttural means it's a kind of a sound which is produced in the throat. It's very harsh. So he thought that no, it's not a sound of a cat. So he resisted the curiosity to look out. Why? Why didn't he look out? He resisted to look out means he stopped himself. He refrained himself from looking out because he thought, if I see what Iswaran was telling, that a ghost, a woman ghost, then his heart would stop functioning. He would be faint. He would go. Maybe he will die, or he will faint out of that. He was too scared to see that image or sight. But the wailing became louder and less feline. He could not resist the temptation anymore. So he first thought that it might be a cat. But then the wailing, the crying became very louder and less feline, which means relating to cats or other members of the cat family. So he now understood that no, it's not a cat. Now he could not resist the temptation anymore. He wanted to look out. He was not able to control himself from looking out. Lowering himself to the level of the windowsill, he looked out at the white sheet of moonlight outside. So finally, he could not resist anymore and he looked outside. There, not too far away, was a dark cloudy form clutching a bundle. Mahendra broke into a cold sweat and fell back on the pillow, panting. So he could not believe what he had seen. It was a dark cloudy form clutching a bundle. Okay, so it was more or less the same thing which Iswaran had told him. He broke into cold sweat. Cold sweat means he was very much frightened. Okay, and he started to sweat. He fell back on the pillow panting. Panting means taking very deep, long breaths. As he gradually recovered from the ghastly experience, he began to reason with himself. So he started to recover very gradually. Okay, ghastly means causing great horror or fear. And finally concluded that it must have been some sort of auto-suggestion, some trick that his subconscious had played on him. So he is not still able to believe what he had seen. He's saying that no, maybe it is my mind which is playing a trick. It is into my subconscious mind. Maybe Ishwaran was saying about these things which has been registered into my mind, and that is why I saw what I saw. It's not like that. There is no ghost. There is no such things as ghosts and spirits. So he's making himself understand. By the time he had got up in the morning, had a bath and come out to have his breakfast, the horror of the previous night had faded from his memory. So next morning he got up, he took a bath, he came out to have his breakfast. The horror actually faded away from his memory. He forgot what he had seen or what he had experienced. Iswaran greeted him at the door with his lunch packet and his bag. Just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said. So Mahendra took his lunch from Iswaran, and as he was about to step out, Iswaran grinned. Grin means smiled broadly, a very broad smile, and said, "Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with a fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room. A chill went down Mahendra's spine. He did not wait for Ishwaran to complete his sentence. So when Ishwaran confronted, "Sir, you were so angry with me, you're saying that no, there is no such thing as ghost or whatever or spirits. What happened? You have experienced yourself. You yourself saw that same thing yesterday." So when he was saying these things, Mahendra was in shock. A chill went down his spine. Chill went down means he was extremely scared. He did not wait for Ishwaran to complete his sentence. He hurried away to his office and handed in his papers, resolving to leave the haunted place the very next day. So he was so scared with this experience, and when Ishwaran also said the same things, that "Sir, you have seen it. You have seen the woman holding a fetus in its arms." He thought that I will no longer to continue to stay in this place. He gave his papers to his office and he resolved that he will never come back to the haunted place. He will go and he will never come back. Okay, so that was the end of the story, and I hope, students, that you have enjoyed the story, you have understood it, and you have also enjoyed the Ishwaran's tales, that how he used to tell stories with so much suspense and surprise. Okay, so before ending the chapter, we will discuss the question answers from your book. Okay, so let's begin. The first question is, in what way is Ishwaran an asset to Mahendra? So we have discussed this question before also, isn't it? That Ishwaran was the cook of Mahendra. He did all the jobs, such as cooking meal, washing clothes, and chatting with Mahendra at night. He could tell endless stories and anecdotes on varied subjects. So that is why he was an asset to Mahendra. The second question. How does Ishwaran describe the uprooted tree on the highway? What effect does he want to create in his listeners? Ishwaran was greatly influenced by the Tamil authors. He liked creating suspense. He had the quality of narrating even the smallest incidents in an impressive way. He presented the incident related to the uprooted tree on the highway in a dramatic way. And how did he do that? Let's see. He was alone and the road was deserted. He saw something that looked like an enormous beast lying across the road. But as soon as he came closer, he found nothing but a fallen tree. So his main purpose was to create interest and suspense among the listeners. Okay, next. How does he narrate the story of the tusker? Does it appear to be plausible? Okay, plausible means, is it really edible, believable? Let's see. Ishwaran narrated the story of the tusker in exaggerated way. Okay. The tusker, having escaped from the timber yard, stamped on bushes, tore up wild creepers, and broke the branches at his will. The elephant became uncontrollable and entered the school ground. It created chaos there. Everyone in the school tried to escape. No one dared to face the tusker. In the meantime, Ishwaran grabbed a cane from the teacher and moved towards the elephant. He hit its third toenail and beast collapsed. So if you remember how he gathered and mustered all the courage and he moved towards the elephant. He claimed that he had used Japanese art to control the tusker. But this story seems totally implausible, as it is very difficult to believe that a child can control a mad elephant. So this is according to the story. But according to you students, what do you think? Is this story believable that a child can bring down a huge beast? So you will tell me, okay? The next question. Why does the author say that Ishwaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV in Mahendra's living quarters? Ishwaran was an expert in telling adventurous and mysterious stories in a dramatic way. It was his daily routine to entertain Mahendra at night. And how he used to entertain? By telling good stories. Mahendra could listen to and watch the development of the story. Thus, Ishwaran seemed to more than make up for the absence of a TV. Okay. Mahendra called ghosts or spirits a figment of the imagination. What happens to him on a full moon night? So Mahendra said that no, there is nothing like ghosts or spirits. It is just your imagination. But what happens to him? Mahendra calls ghosts or spirits a figment of the imagination as he did not believe in ghosts. One day Ishwaran told him about a female ghost holding a fetus in her arms. On a full moon night, he woke up from his sleep and looked outside the window. He got shocked to see the same figure and began to sweat profusely. So he broke into cold sweat. Do you remember? Yes. Next question. Can you think of some other ending of the story? So we are not discussing this question here because I want all of you to have your opinion and write down in your copies. But what do you think? Can a story have a different ending? Like the way it ended? He resigned and he went away from this place, from the haunted place. So you think of a different ending of a story and write down in your copies. That will be a very good, answer to read of what do you think. So students, we will end the class here. I hope you all have understood the chapter. So we will meet in the next class. Till then, bye and take care.